Zo. Hi, I'm Jochem. Welcome to the Poltergeist Productions YouTube channel. And today we're gonna go take a look at the orchestration. In the previous videos we've went over the drums, the bass and the guitars. And if you haven't seen those videos yet, you can either take a look at them now or later, or don't. I can tell you what to do. Nor do I want to. What I'm gonna tell you is what I did for the processing on the orchestral elements. And let me solo them real quick. And then let's just take a listen to them. I'll find a part in the track which has the most, which is probably starting from here. It's most interesting. So let's just take a listen to the orchestration by itself. So yeah, that's basically it. In terms of processing, it isn't that it's basically not much processing, because the elements, the plugins that I use for the orchestration are just, they're all processed instruments anyway, right? So the only processing I'm doing is making room for certain elements in the mix. In the video about the drums, I told about the dynamic EQ, the parallel EQ, no, the sidechains EQ. That was what I'm looking for. And basically what I did was I sidechained the kick and the snare to the orchestral elements, because the frequencies in the low end particular just got a bit in the way of the kick and the snare, in my opinion. But we'll listen to it at the end. Let me switch off all the plugins for now and take a quick listen again, just for the comparison, and then we'll go over channel by channel like we did in the previous videos. So let's hear it. So yeah, let's start with the piano, and we'll listen to it as a bit in solo. It's a very neoclassical part for what I usually write, so pretty proud of it. There's actually just a bit of EQ on it, and that goes for all the channels until we go to we'll get to the bus channel. And here I just take out a bit of low end, so a low cut around 60 hertz and a high cut around 9 kilohertz, but it's a very gentle curve. And then I just cleaned up a bit of the mids and the low mids, which is very well occupied part of the mix anyway, because that's where the bass and the guitars live. So let's hear the difference. First without. And then with. So yeah, not very much going on. Let's move to the strings, and I'll go over them together because there's 4 different tracks. One from the Epic Strings library from that's Spitfire Audio, and then the violin, viola, and cello are the Iconica sketch from Steinberg. So it's just a free plugin you get with Cubase, basically. And I use them more and more because I really like them. So let's hear them without the processing. Just check if I have a part where they all play. Let's find a bit where the Epic strings are doing something, which is just here. And then later we have like the 3 other stringed instruments, strings, whatever you want to call it, playing together. So we'll focus on the Epic strings for now, which is around here. And that's just like a very supportive layer in the bridge segment. In terms of processing, it's again a low cut, around 110, 116, a bit of mids taken out at around 570, and then 573 there was a problem, or I heard a problem, basically. So let's hear the difference. Very subtle, but I thought it was necessary. Again, like I mentioned before, I never listened to these elements in solo as extensively as I do now. I sometimes solo instruments to check if the processing I'm doing actually makes sense, but in general, you don't mix in solo because no one is gonna listen in solo when you put out your music, right? And then for the other strings, let's take this part. So there's violins, violas, and cello, or a cello, how you want to say it. Let's listen to it without the processing. So yeah, again, like I said, it's a very well processed instrument to start with, so you don't need to do that much. I didn't. So I just put on like the 3 EQs I used. For the violins, it's just a low cut around 200 hertz, and then a bit of a dip around 630, just to tame the mids. Then for the violas, there's a bit lower of a roll-off, low cut, around 160, so 200, 160, because it's a lower instrument, so it lives more in that area. Then a bit of a dip around 695, 700 hertz. And then for the cello, again, same principle, but in a bit of a lower spectrum because of the range of the instrument. A cutoff around 90 hertz, and then a bit of a dip around 512. So let's hear them, let's compare them. First off. And then with the EQ. And And yeah, it's very subtle again, but that's because we listen to it solo. Let's move on to the epic brass, which is just this part to give it like a final crescendo towards the end. I basically wanted it to sound more epic than it did. So let's go over the EQ, and then I'll quickly show you with and without. Because again, it's just a low cut and then a dip in the highs to battle the harshness of the brass instruments, because like trumpets and stuff, they get a bit harsh to my ear at least. So I want to take it out a bit. So a quick comparison. This is all they do. It's a very boring part if you're a brass player. With the EQ. Again, very subtle, very hard to hear without the context. Then I have two woodwinds. Are they actually doing something? They are doing something, but I didn't think they needed any processing. So part of the job of a mixing engineer is knowing when not to do things. And then there's a choir. And the choir is doing something over here. Also just in the outro. So let's hear them without the processing, and then we go over the EQs. Just some staccato phrases. Let's put up the EQ. Again, very basic. For the sopranos and altos, there's a low cut at around 200 hertz, a small dip around 820, and a small boost around 3.5K to give it a bit more presence. And then for the basses and tenors, I think in English, there's a low cut at 100 hertz, and then a bit of a dip around 1.5 kilohertz to battle the boxiness. So let's compare them. So yeah, again, very subtle. But that's what it is. It doesn't need much, in my opinion. Then for the... let's listen to it without the reverb first. On the bass channel, there's a bit of a channel strip, EQing and compression going on. So there's a bit of a boost in the top end, and I took out a bit of low mids, and there's just a tiny bit of compression, I guess. So let's listen to it. First without and then with. And you hear that like the body's being taken out a bit, and that's, in my opinion, like when you listen to it stand alone like this, it ruins the sound a bit, but in the context of the whole mix, it needs to give room to the guitars and the bass in that region, which is like around like 400 hertz, but with a fairly broad Q. And the compressor is doing very little, but there's another bus compressor coming later. Then there's some more EQing. Just taking out a bit of 240, 516, so the low mids, the mids, again to make space for the guitars and the bass and the other elements in the mix, basically. So let's compare them real quick. So you hear like just it carves out a bit. Standalone, it sounds stupid, something that you shouldn't do, but in the context of the whole mix, it's absolutely necessary in my opinion. Then let's move on to the bus compressor. Again, I love the Buster from Analog Obsession because of its simplicity and because it's free. No, it's a free compressor and it's really great stuff. Check it out if you haven't. 2-to-1 ratio, very slow attack, slow release, and threshold where it needs to be. So let's hear the difference. So around, I guess, 2 dBs of compression, just to glue it a bit, and then we get to the sidechain dynamic EQ. Talking is hard, which again is because of the kick and snare. So I'll let this hear in a second when we add the other instruments again, because then you can really hear the difference. So let's move to the reverb, and I choose to use a separate reverb because I really like the Dutch concert hall setting from Reference, the plugin is called. So let's hear it. I'll start without and then add it in. It just gives that big feeling of a concert hall. And yeah, that's basically it for the orchestral instruments. I'll quickly show you the difference, and then I'll add the drums for the sidechain compression or sidechain dynamic EQ. And now you can really hear like all the carving out of the mid frequencies, making a difference. Let's get the drums, and I'll take them all, and then show you what the dynamic EQ is doing. Because again, it's sidechained, and it's like the kick and the snare is selected as an input. Then external sidechaining, so you can see when it reacts. So yeah, again, it's very subtle, but to me, it kind of got in each other's way. So I put it on the element that least needed those frequencies, basically. And that's that for the orchestral instruments. Maybe I'll go over the final things in this case, which is on the mix bus. Let's take this out because it's a bit irrelevant. There's a bit of processing on the mix bus, and there's a bit of automation going on, but I'll go over that in a separate video. So for now, let's just hear the last part of the song, with all the instruments, and then we'll end this video. Here we go. And that's that. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.